Hey, yo, big belly gang in the building, man. So I don't know. I was talking about me, actually.
Don't
you have
worry.
a flat tummy.
I know you kind of mean me too, but it's okay.
No. Like you can tell it.
I rock my faux pas with pride.
I rock my amusement pride with pack. Sorry.
Welcome back to the Fix It podcast.
Wagwan Fam.
Oh yeah, it's still 2026.
Any thoughts you have about the previous episode? By all means, please share with us as much as you're going to have, thoughts about this, because we're thinking of having occasional Q&As.
Yep.
Yes. Not just on YouTube here. We could also have Instagram lives as well.
Yeah. Let's do an IG/TikTok thing. I hear TikTok is where it's at right now.
That's what I heard. Yes. But I'm also scared of TikTok. But let's keep that aside. The last conversation we had, we talked about single parenting.
Yes.
Right.
If you missed it, go up there. That's the link right there. Go get it and make sure that you watch it. For today, we are continuing.
Yes. And
I think we'll just go straight into it and say, for those people who found themselves in it, I'll use my story as an example. Married, didn't quite work out, started with a separation.
Yeah.
And then I find myself in this place where while we're trying to work out the kinks and see if you can get back together, then we end up not getting back together. And that whole period, I'm talking about a 12-year period, was just one of me literally going it alone.
And when you heard you had 12 years. It wasn't a joke, 12 years.
12 years, yes. So that 12 years, basically, what it was like was conflict will arise from time to time between the parents, and we have this amazing young man in between. And for me, for the most part, I didn't want to go the route of spite. And even though I wasn't in a good place with my son's father, I knew that for his own sake and sanity and all of that, growing up, he was with me, of course, because mother, by the time we're separated, he was just 4 years old. So that whole period of him being with me, we'll get into conversations sometimes, myself and his dad, and he wouldn't quite work out. And his dad had this thing where whenever I didn't have his way, then he would stop trying to take care of him. So I literally did that by myself, with the support of my family, thank God, and with the support of a number of good people, Daniel being one of them, even when we didn't know we're going to end up together. So that is a lot of the time, that's a situation where single parents find themselves, especially single moms. Again, this is not just a single mom conversation, but the peculiarities that are more that are more like
prevalent.
Yes, with single mothers and you have with single fathers. Hardly, and I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, hardly would you hear of, or perhaps you've heard of, and maybe just let me know. And perhaps if you have heard of a situation where a single father is the one with the child or with the children and he's going it alone, it's a thing of, okay, he needs to get the mom to chip in, and she's not doing that. Okay, actually, I think a lot of the time you see that happening.
Yeah, chip in what sense?
Like everything, financially, emotionally, because just like I said in the last episode, there is the word single, there's the word parent. A lot of the time people focus on the singleness of the person and forget the parenting part.
Yeah.
And for me, the parenting part is the most key place. So it basically says you have a role and a responsibility to the child or the children who came about as a result of whatever it was that led you to being a single parent. And so when I'm talking about chipping in, whether from the woman to the man or from the man to the woman, which more of the time that's what you have, I'm talking about financially, I'm talking about emotionally, and being able to do all of that from a place that is healthy and pure, as opposed to from a place of spite and manipulation. Because even when you see single parenting, maybe a single parent dealing with the ex, where there is an ex involved, because again, people are single parents by virtue of widowhood, they lose a partner or something. But where there is an ex involved, a lot of the time, it's very rare for you to find, them being able to, even though they're not together, them being able to
Work
put
together.
everything aside for the sake of that child and raise that child right. So I think that's the biggest struggle a lot of the time. And so chipping in is again, financially, emotionally, and all of that. But not just doing it, because there are people who weaponize those things, but to be able to do it from a place that is healthy for the child to grow and thrive in.
So, if in case you've not noticed, we're talking co-parenting today.
Single parenting and co-parenting.
Single parenting /
Yes.
co-parenting.
Yes.
And I never experienced co-parenting.
Oh, yeah.
As far as a child, seeing both parents decide to work together. And I wouldn't want to act as though I'm an authority on it. But at the same time, I sense that there are certain points where the parent who is the custodian of the child tends to get a bit scared or wary when it comes to co-parenting, because they might be feeling or thinking that the other parent may want to take them away from them. You understand? There are such situations that, arise, and because of that, they get rather overprotective of the child and all of that. And you would even see in some cases where the so-called co-parenting, the one parent might even want to be in the vicinity of the other parent when it is time for the other parent to, have the child to themselves for a certain period of time, maybe for a play date or something like that. Several things that pop up. Right? Is that something?
So let me take you back to when I was on The Couple, because again, the podcast from me chronicling my journey as a single parent. This is me no longer being a single parent, because I'm blessed with the gift of this man, and so for a while I have had that sense of wholeness. Kind of takes me back to what he said the last episode. Yeah, something about the imbalance, but I've had that sense of wholeness to the best of my knowledge and ability. I take it back to 2020 when I started chronicling my journey. I think I had an episode there speaking with somebody who was in the co-parenting thing. Now there are different elements to co-parenting. Let me just speak from the knowledge that I have, and then as always, please, you guys always share as well. What have you experienced? If you've experienced a situation where you're having to co-parent, and then if not, maybe you've heard of someone's story, share with us as well. Let's talk about that. We'd like to also get to all of that in our Q&A in the next episode. But from what I learned back then, different instances, right? So there are instances like where, let me use my ex for example. Prior to COVID, he got married again. Yeah.
Okay.
Prior to COVID, he got married again.
This was
Tried to do it sneakily.
How many years after the separation?
This was 6 years.
Okay.
After. So he got married again, and then what's it called now? I never got to know, because the way he went about it, he was kind of sneaky about it. So I didn't really have the details on that relationship.
Would you say he was being sneaky? He just didn't tell you about it.
I think it was being sneaky.
Okay.
Because he had literally come into town like a few days before for Dee's birthday. And I remember correctly, 2 or 3 days later, like he came into town, spent some time with Dee, and then 2 or 3 days later was his wedding. Yes. And, he did that, and I didn't hear about it, didn't tell me about it, no, nothing. It was my cousin, shout out to Ajuspe. It was my cousin who, following on social media, saw like pictures and stuff, and then sent me. I was like, yo, this happened. And I found out, I think the wedding was in February, and I found out in July. And all this while we had been in communication, I did not know. So I think safe to say that he was being sneaky about it. This happened in 2019. It wasn't until end of that year, 2019, when he was making moves to go outside the country, and he started placing some kind of demands. And I was like, yo, you're always scheming and tricking and everything. And then when you show up, because you believe that I am ignorant of what's going on, you show up from this point of view where you just want everything to happen. And I remember slowing down what it was that I was trying to do for him at the time. And that's when he realized that perhaps I had found out. And then it was that period, I'm talking about November of that year, that he now started blocking all my family members
On
that
social
knew him
media.
on
Okay.
social media. So, sneaky? Yeah? Sneaky?
Sneaky.
What do you think? Sneaky?
Well, if you, I mean, what do you think? Because the jury's out on this one for me, Shabba.
So us having conversations all that while in between, I think he even came into town again, at least on one other occasion, spent time and all of that. Him doing all that and then getting to the point where he was making plans to travel outside the country with our son, with this person who he had now married, being listed on the documents
Now
as the mother.
That is sneaky.
Come on. So yeah, if the jury is out for you, I understand. But
No, the jury came back.
my
and said-
ruling is sneaky. Anyway, he said all of that to say. In his instance now, there was this situation that was going to happen where somebody else was going to be mothering my son without me knowing. And what I assume he expected that would have happened is that he would travel with him, and then, you know, because he had this thing, genuinely felt like that he didn't spend as much time with him during the course of our separation as much as he would have wanted to, because I was being particular about certain situations. And so I honestly believe that he was just going to take him. And when he took him away, he was just going to literally pay me back by
keeping him away from
by keeping him away from me. So I had that concern genuinely. Now, an ideal situation would be you're getting married, right? Like the way we got married, and he's in the know, right? At least you've spoken with him, you know. So he knows that there's somebody else that is standing in place of fatherhood, over his son at this point in time. An ideal situation would be that we now have conversations about, oh, this is what he thinks about how he wants his son to be raised and all of that. Now, more often than not, he would have that conversation with me. I would then have that conversation with you. Or in the one they call blended family, everybody will sit down at the table
and have a conversation.
and have that conversation. So that's ideal. You get? But that's not what we always see. In some instances, especially where there's a court judgment involved, you now have what's it called now, custody arrangements. And with the custody arrangements, this person might be the primary caregiver and the other person has the child for holidays or the children for holidays and all of that. Now, I go back to the fear that you raised. Depending on how unhealthy the relationship between the parents, the co-parents in this situation is, you will find that one parent is always trying to outdo the other. And that
outdo in what sense?
Outdo in the sense that, and this is something that the children easily will pick up on. So for example, we raise D, right? We're raising him, we're strict on certain things like screen time, game time, study time, you know, and all of that. For a parent who hasn't had the child
with them
for that long, they would tend to make exceptions, sometimes extreme exceptions.
So basically
to be able to win the affection of the child because they've not been with the child for as long. Do you get? So there is that danger in a situation that is not ideal. So custody agreements will now determine timing with each child, and that will now determine, and also the relationship between the co-parents will determine how healthy it's going to be when the child goes over.
So can you mention like 3 other challenges that may occur with co-parenting? Because you already mentioned that there are some co-parenting situations that are very healthy for the child coming up. And then there are very many others that are not as healthy because of toxicity. And then there are some where they are non-existent. But let's talk about the little challenges that the average person will face when it comes to co-parenting. And I'm not talking about just the child, but the 2 individuals involved in this matter.
So, personally. But yeah, you started it. Personally, I haven't fully gotten into that space. Because even though I mentioned that my ex got married before COVID, I don't think he was married for long. So I didn't have, and then that's 1, and then 2, our boy hasn't gone over yet. So I didn't have to do a lot of all that interaction, but I'll maybe share a story from 1 or 2 people that I know. One challenge would be, alignment in terms of morals and values.
Okay.
Because whoever it is that you were married to before, who you're now co-parenting with, chances are that they may be married to someone else who doesn't share the same values, who doesn't share the same ideals as you. And so I know you said it's not about the child, but somehow this still ends up rubbing off on the child.
Yeah.
So, the child grows up in this space where he knows, oh, mommy's strict about this, daddy's strict about this. Of course, daddy, you know what I mean. And then they move over to another home where they have
either mommy or daddy there.
Yes. And then the morals are different, the ideals are different. And then it's now about the person who was the primary giver now trying to get the other parent to say, look, he's been brought up or she's been brought up in this way for so and so period of time. It would be nice if they can continue in that way. So it's a hard thing to be able to follow up on.
When you do that, when you say it would be nice if they could continue that way, are you doing
it because you can't force it?
Are you doing it for the sake of the child or for yourself?
No, because again, what are the things that you believe are right for that child?
My point is,
the good book says, train a child in the way the child should go.
Yes.
Now, in some instances, you may be lucky enough to have trained the child to a certain age where they know the way they should go and they can continue in it. In the instance where the child is still young and they may not have been able to establish their own principles and ideals based on how you raised them, and you send them into a different environment, you cannot be doing it for yourself now, because you're like, I started something, right? And this is what you truly believe is the way that this child should go. And so you very much like for that thing to continue. So it's for the child, it's not for
So let me restructure the question in this way.
Okay.
Are you sure it's not for you? Given that you know that this person will begin to direct them in the other or one other way, and you're thinking, it means that what I did is not good enough. The manner in which I raised this child is not good enough. So to be able to establish that the way I have raised this child is good enough is allow this child to continue to grow in the way that I started them on. So
let me answer you this way now. The question was, is it for you or for the child?
Yes.
I'll say it's both.
Okay.
That's one. Then two, there's also the instance where the primary caregiver is the one that's probably seen as the one that didn't raise the child in the way that the child should go.
My point is
so moving over to the other place, right? The other parent is now trying to rearrange and realign that child. I think, again, we're speaking about challenges. So I think that is a tricky situation, because to be able to have this person who you're no longer with then take over raising your child. And it may not even be a case of take over raising the child, because like we've said, in some instances where there are custody arrangements, you have a case of holidays and then the rest of the time here. So the challenge is basically communicating that you don't want to have to be dealing with a different child by the time the child gets back to you.
Okay.
Yes. So it's being able to communicate that with your fellow co-parent. I think that's one major thing. But again, let's get this. For everything that we say is a challenge between the co-parents, it has its the way it affects the child. Because like I said, children will play off some of these energies. Whatever they cannot get when they're with parent A, they know how to wind parent B to get it. So to be able to balance it all on both sides, honestly, because I think whether primary caregiver or the other parent, each person is trying to balance. So God help you if you're in a co-parenting situation like some of us are. I think praying to God really, it's going to go a long way, because you need to be able to have the wisdom to be able to communicate with this co-parent of yours, while at the same time instilling a certain a mindset within the child. Because I guarantee you, see, for children who know how to play the situations, they will literally go over to the other parent, then come back and use words like, my mommy or my daddy would have done this for me. And if you're raising a teen, and we know how teenagers are, they will manipulate you and wind you. And so it can be a very dicey situation. I think for me, what other challenge could there be? It's basically in everything. I think is basically wrapped up into that one, because so many other situations now come out from it. The ability to communicate, to translate your values and principles with the co-parent such a way that they can carry on.
So what are the things that you should, what values should you hold on to when you're trying to co-parent? Because like we already know, it isn't one size fits all.
No,
So I don't think the word I'm looking for is values. What I'm looking for is, what are the things you should set your mind on?
Yep.
Right? To ensure that your co-parenting experience is as advantageous for your child as possible, and for you as an individual. Because more often than not, parents get lost in their children that they forget themselves, right? So something that is also going to be healthy for you. 2 or 3 things that you can mention.
I have one.
Just one.
Yes.
Okay, one works.
You have to heal. You have to heal. Part of the problem, whether you're single parenting or whether you're co-parenting, is that a lot of us are not healed from our experiences. So let me say this again. It's possible that you're single parenting, you don't have an ex to deal with, so co-parenting is not a problem for you, but you're still not healed from whatever it was that got you to that point where you're single parenting in the first place. And so you will find yourself, whether you know it or not, whether you like it or not, taking out your, what's the word? The fact that you're not healed, it will pour out onto your child.
Basically, taking out, bleeding on your child's head.
That's the word, yeah? So that's one. First of all, let's address the single parenting aspect of it. Then if you are co-parenting, it's even worse, because chances are that because you're not healed, every sight of that ex, every sound of that ex is a trigger.
Especially if the child now looks like that ex.
That takes you back to, no, I'm not even on the child yet. I'm talking about the interaction that you must maintain in the bid to co-parent, and provide that child with some sort of healthy experience, right? Every sound or sight of that ex can serve as a trigger, because by virtue of the fact that you're doing this co-parenting thing, you cannot just X them out of your life completely. So if you're not healed and you still have these triggers popping up, it's going to tell very badly on that co-parenting relationship you have. And sometimes it's not because we want to, it's just because we don't know that we still have to let go of some of these things. So I think healing is key. And I promise you, it's no easy journey. I did this single parenting thing for 12 years. I'm just about to enter into the co-parenting phase of my life. So like I said, a lot of what I'm sharing is from stories that other people have shared with me, and maybe some teeny tiny experiences here or there. When my ex has come around and we're like, okay, let's make joint decisions over our son. So it can't be easy. It's not easy, but if you need time to heal before you get to that point where you're open to co-parenting, for the sake of your child, maybe that's one thing that you must put front and center before going into that.
I also have to mention that there are some cases, right, where you should do all you can to ensure that the other parent is not in their life.
There is that as well.
There's that point.
So as much as we're talking single parenting and co-parenting, sometimes one does not need to translate into the other. It's possible that for the interest of yourself and your child, maintain single parenthood.
And then there are times when you should be the parent who is not in your child's life.
Now you need to throw some light on that one.
Because you might be the person with the problem. You might be the person with the problem.
With which problem now? The problem in parenting?
The problem in relationship / parenting.
Explain. Like give a scenario where this instance plays out.
Let's say a relationship happened, it was toxic, you were the toxic parent, the toxic person in the relationship.
If you agree,
if you agree,
if you own up to that,
and then you now end up going separate ways with this person, and then you take the child with you, and you
out of spite, yeah.
out of spite, and then you also happen to be a person who is not very good with raising that child. You get. So on either front, you now have a case of you being toxic to that person. You're now raising a child who you are not equipped to raise, and then you're going to pour your, like we already mentioned before,
bile and bitterness.
pour your bile, your bitterness, your bias, your poison, your blood, everything on that child. And then remember what she said about things that can trigger you. God now helps you that that child looks like the person, or for any reason you remember that child, you are the person that does not need to have that child with you.
Wow.
There's a great possibility. So you might be watching this now thinking, oh my God, how do I get to do good? You just may be the person who should not be with the
So
child.
what should happen in that situation now? Hand the child over to the other parent?
But because of the spite that is in your heart, you will not.
I mean,
because you're a coconut head.
I think I just remembered a situation similar. Yeah. So even when there was a court judgment granting the primary caregiver custody, because you had access to the children, because this particular person had access to the children, went ahead, took the children anyway, out of spite, not because of love for the children, or maybe the love was secondary or third or like the 10th thing on that person's list, because eventually they couldn't cater to the children and they had to return them.
So those cases abound. So you know that thing where we hardly introspect as humans?
I think so.
Very many humans.
And in some instances, when we introspect, we just are very, very wicked. And you know that you are the problem. You've done introspection. You know that there's something not quite right with you or the way you're going about this situation with your child, and you don't ask for help. You don't try to get better. You don't try to make things better. You just carry on like that. Which brings me to what I feel like is the most important thing in all of this. And this is something I had to learn too, because there were times when I just wanted to be like, look, I'm Xing you from my life. And by Xing you, you're not going to have access to him. You will look for us. You will not see us. I went through that phase in my life. But I think that God helped me somehow. It got to the point where whenever my ex called, I would just hand over, because I know I don't want to talk to him. I would just hand the phone over to our boy and all. So you need to be able to introspect and decide that in every situation you are putting the parenting first, not your relationship with your ex, not what got you to being a single parent in the first. Because for some of us, the hurt, like the SAU instances that you mentioned, the hurt, the trauma of what got you to being there is the one thing that we carry with us the most. You need to be able to, at every point in time, put the parenting first.
Talking about trauma, if you permit me to include this part.
Why not?
So she, based on the experience that she had in her past marriage, even 11, 12 years after separation and everything, there was still that effect that relationship had on her, in the sense that the man could be doing something and she just triggers and she's like, I know how this man thinks. He wants to do this. He wants to do this. I mean, I had seen her go through a lot of challenges at the time, but none of them ever got her down. Like whenever she got off a call with her ex, right? Especially because there was the whole talk about our boy moving over, and that's their son, my son, basically moving over and all of that. And she could be shaking, you understand, because of past experiences, which is very important when you hear her say heal. Because if you do not heal, this person still has power over you 10, 15, 20 years after, right?
I honestly don't think that they will ever completely, especially when you're in a co-parenting situation, I don't think that they ever completely lose their power over you.
And vice versa.
So a lot of the rest that I'm able to have mentally, emotionally, and all of that, and my headspace and my ability to just sometimes let things go is because I have a support, emotional support in this man. Like, I can literally talk to him and express my fears, and he's able to speak to me not just as my husband and the father and cover over our boy at this time, but also because he's able to also speak to me from the perspective of a man. So sometimes he's thinking the way a man would think generally, even though the man in this instance will be my ex, but he's able to give me a perspective from that allows me to see, okay, so maybe I shouldn't freak out so much. Or, okay, this is what I'm going to do as a result of this and this and that. So there is a balance that comes with, first of all, being able to heal, and secondly, being able to find support systems or a person that also adds to your strength to be able to carry through with these situations. Because I promise you, if you go from one toxic ex and you move on to another relationship with somebody who's also toxic, who's selfish, who doesn't really see you,
or if it is you that is those things,
it will make it even more. Yeah, I mean, I it's important that we address this part of it as well. But I don't know how to come at that, because for me, no matter how well intentioned you are, no matter how much of a great person you are, all it takes is for these triggers from this ex to make you the worst of yourself. So for me, the answer to if you're the problem, if you're the person, is heal. And if you don't heal, don't co-parent, or like he said, if you don't heal, maybe consider not being the one with the child. It's a tough decision to make, but if you always remember to put the parenting part of it in front, then maybe, just maybe, it might help you. So what are your experiences? Maybe share with us and start compiling your questions. I think for the Q&A, we will touch on everything we've discussed in this series so far, from the last episode to this one. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, on this series, right? And based on the conversations that we have with you, you may determine whether we will extend this conversation, right? Because we do believe that when you bring your own thoughts into the matter, we will see other things that we can touch on. Because like we said, we are not the ones with all the answers. We're just trying to contribute a little to kobo to making this work. So hey, send those messages.
Yes, share with us your experiences. Are you a single parent? What's it been like for you? Are you co-parenting? What are your experiences? What are the lessons? All of that. Let's have all of it. Share with us, and we will do our best to answer as well.
And remember to follow us. It's right there on your screen, as you can see, the Fix It podcast on those different platforms. And of course, subscribe to our channel. And like we said earlier, was it this episode or the last episode?
Last episode.
Yes. Spread the word, please. We still want to do that live show at the end of this year, towards the last quarter of the year, so that we can, make this family real. Not just something you just watch on TV. Oh my God, you're so funny. Oh my God, you're so wise. No. Let's do this together as one family, okay?
All right. So until the next episode,